There's a free PDF on my website called the Blues Starter Kit. I'll leave a link in the description. This is a walkthrough of the Blues Starter Kit. This is for the guitar player who's just getting into playing blues chords, so it's not comprehensive, but it's a good place to start. In the Blues Starter Kit, we'll go over movable dominant 7 chords, notes on strings 5 and 6 so you can find the roots of those chords, how to find the 1, 4, and 5 chords in any key, standard 12-bar blues and quick change bar blues forms, some useful strumming patterns, and finally some common intros, turnarounds, and endings. On page 2 of the Blues Starter Kit, you'll find some movable dominant 7 forms. These are very important for blues. This form has a root on the 6th string. It's played with fingers 1, 2, 4, and 3. We're muting strings 1 and 5. This is a movable chord form. I'm placing the root right now on the G flat or F sharp, depending on what you want to call it, on the 2nd fret of the 6th string. So it's a G flat or F sharp 7. If I move it up 2 frets to the A flat, where my root is now it's an A flat 7. The next 2 dominant 7 forms have the root on the 5th string. This next one is the one I use most often. This one is played with the 3rd finger on the root, finger 3, 2, 4, and 1, shaped exactly like a C7, except we're muting strings 1 and 6, so it's a movable chord. My 3rd finger is playing the root. I'm at the 4th fret, so you could call that either C sharp or D flat, so that would be a D flat 7. If I move it 2 frets higher, now my root is on the E flat at the 6th fret. It's an E flat 7. And this one has a root on the 5th string as well, this time played with your 1st finger. Played with finger 1, 3, 1, and 4. So finger 1 is barring strings 3 through 5, and we're muting the 1st string and the 6th string, although if you wanted to, you could bar and play the 1st string as well. I tend to play this with just the middle 4 strings. This is a B7 that I'm playing because I'm placing the root of the shape, in this case my 1st finger, on the B on the 5th string. If I move it 3 frets higher to the 5th fret, which is a D, now it's a D7. Those 3 forms have 4 notes. The next 2 voicings are shell voicings, which contain just the essential notes of the chord. These are 3 notes only. This one has a root on the 6th string, and notice that there are no finger numbers there. I've labeled the root and the 7th and the 3rd, but no finger numbers because the fingering is flexible. There are only 3 notes. Right now I'm playing it with fingers 1, 2, and 3, and I'm muting all the other strings. You could also play this with fingers 2, 3, and 4. And your fingering will depend on your comfort level and what chords are before or after it. This will be an A flat 7 that I'm playing because I'm placing the root on the A flat on the 4th string, the 4th fret on the 6th string. Move it 2 frets higher to the B flat. Now it's a B flat 7. And this one is another shell voicing with the root on the 5th string. This is really just a cut down version of that C7 shape form. And we don't have the finger numbers in there because the fingering is flexible. We're just playing those 3 notes, muting all the other strings. I'm playing it right now with fingers 3, 2, and 4. Also very common to play it with fingers 2, 1, and 3. So this would be a D flat 7 that I'm playing because I'm placing my root on the D flat. If I move this, say, up to the 8th fret, where that F is, now it's an F7. To use these movable chord shapes, you need to be able to locate the notes on strings 5 and 6. On page 3 of the Blues Starter Kit, we have 3 fretboard diagrams. The first one shows the natural notes on strings 5 and 6. The second one fills in the gaps with flats, and the third one fills in the gaps with sharps. If you need help learning the fretboard, you can download the free Learning the Fretboard PDF, or you can check out some fretboard videos. I'll leave links for all of that in the description. So let's say you want to play a G7 chord. To play a G7 with the root on the 6th string, you place the root of any of those 6-string root shapes at the G on the 6th string, 3rd fret. And to play a G7 with the root on the 5th string, you place the root of any of the 5th string root shapes at the G on the 5th string, 10th fret. Most blues chords are based on the 1, 4, and 5 chords, and those numbers come from the degrees of the major scale. Beginning on the tonic, or the note a scale is built on, you can number each note 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 1 again when you reach the next octave higher. And the chord based on the 1st scale degree is the 1 chord, and the chord based on the 2nd scale degree is the 2 chord, and so forth. To play blues progressions, you'll need to locate the root notes of the 1, 4, and 5 chords of whatever key you happen to be in. If the root of your 1 chord is on the 6th string, the root of the 4 and 5 will both be on the 5th string. The root of the 4 will be same fret as your 1 chord, is just on the other string. The root of the 5 chord will always be 2 frets higher than your 4. So there's your 5. So 1, 4, 5. And if you put chords to that, 1 with whatever dominant 7 shape you want to play, 4, and 5. Now if the root of your 1 chord is on the 5th string, again, your 4 and 5 will be on the other string, in this case the 6th string. The root of the 4 will be 2 frets lower than the root of the 1 on the 6th string. The 5 is always 2 frets higher than your 4, and that will also end up being the same fret as your 1 chord, just on the other string. So 1, 4, 5. Put some chords to that. 1, 4, 5. With this information, you can find the 1, 4, and 5 chords in any key. So once you know your key, find the root note of the 1 chord on string 5 or 6, preferably toward the middle of the fretboard. Then find the roots for the 4 and 5 relative to the 1 chord. And if a root note is on the 6th string, play one of the 6th string root shapes. And if a root note is on the 5th string, play one of the 5th string root shapes. The most common blues form is the standard 12-bar blues. It's 12 measures long, and we have 4 measures of the 1 chord, 2 measures of the 4 chord, back to 2 measures of the 1 chord, and it ends with 1 measure of 5, 1 measure of 4, and last 2 measures are the 1 chord. The second most common blues form is the quick change blues. It's identical to the standard 12-bar blues, except you play the 4 chord in measure 2. So we have 1 measure of 1, then we quickly go to 1 measure of the 4, and then 2 measures of 1, and then after that, the rest of the 8 measures are exactly the same as the standard 12-bar blues. I'm going to play through a couple blues choruses, but before we do that, we need to talk about comping patterns or strumming patterns. Now, most blues are in 4/4 time, so really, as long as the pattern's in 4/4, you can play any strumming or fingerstyle pattern. You can try one of these 4 comping patterns if you're going for a more traditional blues. So this is often called the Freddie Green style, after the original guitar player in the Count Basie Orchestra. And what you do is you play steady quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. You put space between each chord by muting the strings with your fretting hands. So all you have to do is play a chord to put that space in there, take a little pressure off the strings with your fretting hand. Don't take your finger off the strings, because you might end up with a pull-off like that. So keep in contact with the strings. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice and easy. This next one is a variation of that Freddie Green style. So instead of all short all the time, we play long quarter notes on beats 1 and 3 and short quarter notes on 2 and 4. So 1, let that ring into beat 2, and on beat 2 you mute. And then 3, let that ring into beat 4, and on beat 4 you mute. 1, 2, 3, 4. These other two patterns are variations of what's called the Charleston rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Ba, ba. So you play a short note on beat 1 and mute just like you do with the Freddie Green pattern. And then on the end of 2, you play another chord and you hold that through the rest of the measure. So 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. I'll speed it up. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Ba, do, ba, ba, ba. And this other variation is just 2 short notes. You're still playing on beat 1 and on the end of 2. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. This time you're just muting the chord every time. So nice short stabby chords. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Ba, ba, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. To practice playing blues chords, first pick a key and decide whether to start with the root on the 5th or the 6th string. Decide whether you're going to play a standard or quick change blues, and decide which comping pattern you want to play. So let's do a B-flat blues, standard 12-bar blues. We're going to do that long, short pattern. And if you're new to these chords, it's not a bad idea to first practice finding your root notes. I like to play a lot of these chords in the middle of the fretboard, so there's a B-flat on the 6th string right in the middle of the fretboard. So that will be your 1. And then from there we have our 4 and our 5. Put some chords to that. 1, 4, 5, and then play your blues. 1, to the 4, to the 1, to the 5, 4, and 1. Now let's do a quick change blues in E flat, and this time we'll use one of those Charleston patterns. Again, if you're new to these chords, it's not a bad idea to practice finding your root notes and then practice your chords. So E flat is our key. There's an E flat right here in the middle of the fretboard on the 6th fret on the 5th string. And relative to that, so that's our 1, relative to that is our 4 and the 5. Put whatever chords you want to that. So 1, 4, 5, and then play your quick change blues. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Back to 1. To your 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. To your 1. To your 5. 4. To your 1. Blues tunes are short. Typically, a band will play the head, which is the main tune, twice, repeat the chorus a bunch of times for solos, and then play the head twice again at the end. It's common to play a turnaround in the last measure of the progression instead of the 1 chord as a way of leading back to the beginning, and the turnaround is almost always the 5 chord. A lot of turnarounds include the flat 5 or the flat 6 chord. The flat 5 is 1 fret lower than your 5 chord. The flat 6 is 1 fret higher than your 5 chord. So if this is the root for the 1 chord on the 6th string, here's your 4, flat 5, 5, and flat 6. Put some chords to that. 1. And then this whole row is all done with the same chord form, whatever you choose. So 4, flat 5, 5, and flat 6. And if the root of your 1 is on the 5th string, then here's your 4, flat 5, 5, and flat 6, all in a row. So 1, 4, and this row is all with the same chord form. Flat 5, 5, and flat 6. On page 11, you'll find some common turnarounds, and these are all examples from the last 4 measures of a blues progression. And what you'll find in the last measure, instead of playing the 1 chord, you'll play the 5 chord, and that helps lead back to the beginning. So if we're in the key of B flat here, we have 5, 4, 1, and here's our turnaround, do-ba-do-da. So not only do we play a different chord in the last measure, playing the 5 instead of the 1, we also play something different rhythmically to help signal that something's changed, we're going back to the beginning. In this case, we're just playing some eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. You could also do it all down strums. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. So if I'm in the key of B flat, beginning of this line, we have our 5, 4, 1, and our turnaround. And then we go back to the top. Now if we're in E flat, here's our 5, 4, 1, and our turnaround. Do-ba-do-da. This next example, we're still playing the 5 chord at the end, but we're doing something a little different rhythmically than the other turnaround. This time we have 2 eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3, 4. So you play on 1, the and of 1, rest on beat 2, and then a long note on the and of 2. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. So if this is a B flat blues that's ending, we have our 5, 4, 1, ba-da-ba, then back to the top. If we were in E flat, here's our 5, 4, 1, and our 5, ba-da-ba, and again back to the beginning. In this next turnaround, we play a quick 1 chord on beat 1, and then we quickly slide from 4 to flat 5 to 5. So if that's in the key of B flat, here's our 1, our 4, our flat 5, and the 5. And the 4, flat 5, and 5 is just the same chord form, sliding up and down the string. The rhythm is 1 and 2 and 3, 4. So it's the same rhythm as the first example, except this time we're a little more active with our chord. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. So if we're in the key of B flat, here's our 5, 4, 1. And if we're in the key of E flat, here's our 5, 4, 1. Back to the top. And in this last turnaround example, we play the 1 chord really quickly at the beginning of the measure, and then this time we slide from flat 6 to 5. So in the key of B flat, you'll play 1, and that'll just be a quick 1 chord on beat 1, and then flat 6 to 5, and whatever form you're going to use for your 5 chord, use that for your flat 6 chord. Just play it 1 fret higher, and then slide down to the 5. So it's going to be 1, 2 and 3, 4. 1, 2 and 3, 4. So in the key of B flat, 1 to our 5, to our 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Then back to the top, and if you're in the key of E flat, here's our 5, 4, 1. Back to the beginning. A good intro establishes the tempo and style, and if you are working with a singer, it establishes the key so they can find their first note. And you'll find that the most effective intros are often the simplest. For example, you could just play the 1 chord forever until someone starts singing or playing the melody, and this is called vamping, repeating a chord or two over and over again in a sort of holding pattern until the main tune starts. Another common intro is to play the last 4 measures of the chorus with the turnaround as a nice smooth lead-in to the start. So you play your 5, 4, and 1, and then some sort of turnaround. And then you start the tune. As with intros, the most effective endings are often the simplest, especially if you're playing in a jam setting where musicians are often playing together for the first time and they need some sort of standard way to end a tune. So one way you could end a tune is to vamp the 1 chord, the way you might vamp on the 1 chord as an intro. If you're vamping the 1 chord as an ending, usually somebody will improvise over the chord, and then you'll get a signal from the band leader or the soloist when it's time to hold the chord out or just stop. Another common ending is to repeat the last 4 measures with no turnaround. No turnaround. This is sometimes called a tag. When you play a tag, it's common to play the last 4 measures a couple extra times. And there's your blues starter kit. Check out this video if you want to get into shell voicings, and for more guitar lessons, music theory, and solo guitar arrangements, please subscribe.